Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the second South Asia Roundtable for the Ubuntu Symposium. For today's discussion, we are going to focus on a very crucial, very particular issue that is important for South Asia, stop early and forced marriages, and a need for a South Asia commitment. So just to give you an kind of background to the discussion today, you know that from the last symposium that we had in Delhi 6 years ago, Many Engage Alliance and partners actually gathered in New Delhi for the second symposium, and there had been a lot of explorations in terms of the state of field of the work that had been happening since the first symposium, and also with related to the work on masculinities and engaging men and boys for gender and gender social justice work. So since the launch of the second, of course, the third symposium, we have been looking back and kind of seeing how far we have come and how much we have done in terms of transforming masculinities in like not only in South Asia but as a whole in all the regions that we have been working on. So what is the progress that we have made, and what has actually happened during the last 6 years? What are our challenges and what have been our gaps in terms of engagement, in terms of network building, in terms of addressing some crucial issues that are very much relevant to regions? And these had been some of the questions that we have been kind of looking at during the last few weeks. So in terms of South Asia, when it comes to engagement and boys for gender justice and social justice work, we actually have identified that there had been few key gaps that we need to kind of put our focus on, put our energy on, and that we need to work more on. So one is the lack of engagement by young people into the network and also into the work on men and masculinities. And also, we have also looked at the ability of the alliance to bring about a common South Asia commitment for at least certain issues that are very, quite relevant to South Asia. Because South Asia, in terms of patriarchal system, the masculinities, I mean, it's very, like very unique region when it comes to different types of masculinities, because it is a very dynamic region when it comes to the different languages people talk, the different ethnicities, the different cultures that people are coming from, different traditions. And, in terms of all that, I think it's a very dynamic region that we have in South Asia. So it's quite relevant for us to see how much South Asia as a region can come together and look at their own issues and look at their own kind of challenges and gaps in terms of transforming masculinities for gender justice. So that is why for today, for this roundtable, we have actually selected this particular discussion to kind of address these two gaps that we have identified for the last few years, to bring young people into the table and also to kind of give them the space, the opportunity to share their experiences, the good practices that they have been kind of generating throughout, and some of the lessons learned and recommendations that they could share with us, they could give us, kind of take this conversation way for and towards to more constructive future conversations, to future interventions in terms of South Asia. So for today, for the Ubuntu Symposium, we are also connecting the whole discussion into the Ubuntu Symposium themes when it comes to accountability, transformation, power week, and many other feminisms and many other terms that we have been kind of focusing in the Ubuntu Symposium. And most importantly, the whole theme of the whole focus of the Ubuntu Symposium, the whole meaning of Ubuntu, I am because you are. So please welcome our speakers, and I will introduce our moderator for today. And Here we have our moderator for today's discussion, a young activist on women and local government politics, and she had been kind of, um, kind of having her degree at the University of Dhaka on women in local government and politics. Salma. So thank you, Salma, for kind of agreeing to moderate this session for young people. And she actually had been working on the development as a development researcher in Bangladesh Institute of Development Studies and Concern worldwide Bangladesh for 5 years. And of course, she has kind of lot of experience in gender justice work. She had been working on the field on the gender justice issues for the last 15 years. And of course, she had been part of the Men Engage Alliance for many years, from the inception of the alliance in Bangladesh. And currently, she is working with Save the Children in Bangladesh. And of course, she is a very active young feminist. So, Salma, over to you. And let's have a fruitful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Really very good starting, Shamita. We enjoyed. Especially, I want to say a few things about this, that there is a more South Asian issues are coming, that South Asian, you started with South Asian perspective. So that was giving us a lot of energy that yes, we are here, basically the South Asians, we have more dynamics and we are so diverse also. So these are all energetic for us. And from that note, I want to start. Thank you, Shamita, our regional South Asian regional coordinator from Sri Lanka. And also, I want to welcome all our our panelists, youth speakers today, which itself so lovely. And we are really looking forward to learn from them today. We also welcome every participants, our audience today, and hope that we together will enjoy the discussions at South Asian Roundtable. So yes, I want to start saying about the SRHR for All, which is a South Asian program with youths who will do advocacy and campaign in country and also at South Asian level. And in 2019, we together means Man Engage Alliance in these 5 countries, and our youth change makers together, we developed this program. And that is why a lot of passion, lot of unique experiences we have actually with this. So this is a good opportunity that you all are joining us, and we want to hear from you. So I would like to introduce our panelists today. First slide is about Shohanur Rahman. Next slide, please. Just
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, can someone? Yeah, next slide. I was looking for next slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, and first slide. Before 2 more. Yes, this one. Thank you so much. So first, I would like to. Okay, you cannot see me. I didn't notice that.
Yes, Salma, good to see you. Yes.
Thank you. I didn't notice it that over display. Okay. First, I would like to introduce Shohanur Rahman. Shohanur is the chief executive of a youth-led organization in Bangladesh. The name of the organization is Bangladesh Model Youth Parliament. So you understand that they are doing a lot of parliamentarian activities. And Shohanur is a young climate advocate for Bangladesh, and also in the globe. He is really working very much passionate about. I have also experienced her. Shohanur also very much with the project of SRHF for all, and also working in Bangladesh and also region and global together. Many of us already introduced Shohanur Rahman, so welcome, Shohan. Next, we want to move to another panelist, please. Yes. So we have Sifat Tasfia with us. Sifat Tasfia is an undergraduate student from the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. And currently, she is with this SRHF for All and End Child Marriage program. And also, she has interest in global politics and development. She has her future dream to be a policy maker. Oh, that's cool. And also wants to be work at UN level, and also she likes to teach English to underprivileged students in the society. So reading, writing, painting, traveling, these are passion. Sifat, welcome, Sifat. Let's introduce our next panelist. Next slide, please. We want to welcome Niti. Niti is from India, and Niti works for nearly 7.5 years work experience in development sector, and the name of the organization is Shahayok in Lucknow, in India, and she is working as program associate. Niti has experience in training on the issues of women health, gender, sexuality, and she has experience in community groups mobilization, especially women and girls. And she did her diploma on NGO management from Mahatma Gandhi uh, Krishi Vidyapith, and also did her MA in sociology. Thank you and welcome, Niti. Let's move to the next panelist. Next slide, please. We are taking some little time because these are so important that we introduce our youth panelists. Now it comes Siddhant Petricha. Siddhant, uh, Siddhant is a young professional who works in intersections of gender, mental health, and SRHR. Um, he is a YP fellow, worked for providing comprehensive sexuality education. So this is really interesting, and he worked in with young men across Delhi. Recently, currently, Siddhant is working on research with YP Foundation and to basically focusing on to understand the impact of COVID-19 and in the lives of young men in North India. He has articles.
Salma,
So
I don't think we hear you well.
thank you. We're back. Sorry for technology related difficulties. So we want to move for next panelist. Thank you. So now we have Santosh Maharajan, and Santosh is rights. He is working professionally as a child rights advocate. So interesting, and also Santosh is passionate about creating safer society for children. He has active participation. He wants to ensure that all children have active participation. His expertise also in lead in networking, mobilize youths, evidence-based best practice documentation, training, etc. He has engagement with a youth-led, youth-serving organization where he is a president. So welcome, Santosh. Thank you, and over to next. So we have Shubhecha. I guess Shubhecha. If it is wrongly pronounced, I do not. Please correct me later. So Shubhecha Rana. So Shubhecha was a SRHR change maker from Nepal, and she has been working for Shati since 2004. um, and uh, and a lot of experience, of course, she is with her on violence against women and gender equality, especially on domestic violence, harmful traditional practices, child marriage, and engaging men and boys. Menstruation, dignified menstruation, youth peace, security. So these are the areas where Shubhacha had experience over the period, and she was the key coordinator for Generation Equality National Youth Conference, which was convened by Sati in January 2020, where 200 youth participants attended in 7 provinces in Nepal. So she also very much involved with the steering committee members of Man Engage Alliance Nepal. So we welcome Shubhecha from Nepal. We want to welcome the Nepal team. So let's move to next group. Next panelist, please. Next slide. So we are waiting for the next slide, but I can start saying about Said.
It's
Ali.
Inam. Yes, Said Ali. Yes. Yes, right, Salma. Go ahead. Salma, your voice has dropped.
He has a lot of experience. Can you now?
Salma, we can't hear you. Can others hear Salma?
No, I can't hear Salma.
Okay, Salma, I think we have lost you.
I can't.
No.
No.
Host has
Okay,
changed.
until Salma rejoins.
Host change.
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, Samita, go ahead.
Yes. So until Salma rejoins, let me introduce Ali Salman. Mr. Ali's core areas of interest are gender equality, human rights and masculinities, and international development. So he had been kind of, currently he's also heads Rosan's Men Engage program, Hankadam. The program aims to build capacities and sensitize men and young boys, as well as organizations interested to work on issues of masculinities. So he's also leading the innovative and pioneer initiatives of curbing GBV through sports in Pakistan. So welcome, Ali Salman. So let me go to Inam now, Inam Al-Haq, a young change maker who had been working with us for 2 years now on SRHR related work. So he had been on gender equality, women empowerment, and child right and SRHR issues, and also also on early marriages in Pakistan for the last 5 years. He's part of the Men Engage Alliance, a project on SRHR, and had been working on this project for the last 2 years. Welcome, Inam. For time sake, we will give brief introductions to our speakers. We can, of course, get to know them well later. So Adil Suraj is from Sri Lanka. He's a young activist who performs several platforms such as LGBTQ rights, HIV awareness, sexual and reproductive health rights, and youth issues. and also on digital and social media engagements as an advocate and facilitator. So I'm welcoming Adil into the discussion. And we have Senil Vanyarachi also from Sri Lanka. Senil is the co-founder and a director of Hashtag Generation, a young youth-led organization. I think they have been working on a lot of social justice issues in Sri Lanka. In 2017, he received the Queen's Young Leader Award in recognition of his work on using social and new media tools to empower young people to meaningfully engage in decision-making processes. Senil holds an MSc in Human Rights from the London School of Economics and Political Science, which is followed on a Chevening scholarship. So I'm also welcoming Senil into the today's conversation. So I think with that I have introduced all the speakers for today's discussion. I'm just thinking whether Salma is back. Is Salma, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Salma, yes. So I have introduced the speaker, Salma.
Yes, I have heard. That's
straight.
excellent. Thank you.
Okay, just please go start with the first round.
Yes, let's start. So I would like to, we have introduced all our youth panelists. So welcome everyone.
Maybe you can turn off your camera, Salma, so that we can hear you. We don't hear you yet.
Okay. Is it better now? Is it better now? Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear now.
Okay. So let's start our dialogue today. First, we want to hear from our panelists from 5 countries that what let's share your experience about the context in South Asia and particularly your own country, so that in terms of SRHR and child marriage and other forms of violence. So we want to hear about your country, the context. So let's hear first the context so that we understand about the South Asia. So I would like to call country one after another. So first, we'd like to welcome Bangladesh. Over to you, Bangladesh.
Thank you so very much for giving me the floor. Can you all hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much. Let me start screen sharing.
Yes.
I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so very much. First of all, hello, greetings from Bangladesh. My heartiest thanks to the panelists and distinguished guests for giving me the floor to speak before you today. I am Sifat Taswia, working as a youth volunteer in the project SRHR for All and End Child Marriage in Bangladesh. So today I will be talking about Bangladesh youth movement on SRHR for All and End Child Marriage. So, as known globally now, the present context of rape in Bangladesh reflects a gruesome scenario. And according to Ain o Salish Kendro, from January to October 2020, there have been around 1,349 rapes, 277 gang rapes, and 46 murders after rapes all around the country. And there have been events like a 14-year-old girl dying after only a month of her marriage for physical torture, and incidents of gang rapes going viral on social media. And although most of such incidents in Bangladesh go unreported, a few of such harrowing incidents sparked protests across the country against rape and all sorts of violence against women. And prevention of rape and violence against women, therefore, is now not only the agenda of a project or a political party, but it is now a desperate demand of the mass people of Bangladesh. Now, moving on to the desk review. The objectives of our project included to critically analyze various acts and laws like the Child Marriage Restraint Act 2017, National Plan of Action to End Child Marriage 2018 to 2030, Strategy for Adolescents Health and SRHR 2018, and generate recommendations for policy advocacy. Our methodology included a qualitative study where we reviewed the national policies, acts, and laws and gathered information from 14 key informant interviewers. Our existing policy documents review include the Constitution Article 15, Article 18, Section 1, ICPD, CRC, Beijing PFA, CEDAW, CMRA, National Plan of Action to End Child Marriage 2018 to 2030, National Children Policy 2011, National Women's Development Policy 2011, and National Strategy for Adolescent Health and SRHR 2017 to 2030. Now, let's have a look at the child marriage situation in Bangladesh from a masculinities lens. At present, child marriage rate in Bangladesh is 51.4%, and Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics revealed that young boys in Bangladesh are now married at about a ratio of 7%. And this unraveled a need to review the National Plan of Action to End Child Marriage to incorporate issue on the early marriage of boys. The project worked to change men's perspective of marrying under 18 years. The project unearthed the government's need to expand the definition of statutory rape to include young boys within the framework. The project also revealed the need to address the ambiguity and dilemma in dealing with rape and sexual harassment against men, boys, transgender by including necessary provisions within the existing act. The seventh five-year plan exclusively focuses on improving SRHR indicators for women. According to Children Repression Act 2000, 16 to 18 years old male rape victims are not addressed, and the government has introduced an adolescent-friendly health corner, MOWC.
I'm not hearing. Is
Yes.
other person here?
No, we don't hear her.
Okay, Sifat. Sifat may be disconnected. Not sure. Little bit waiting because still time there. Hope she will back.
So as I was saying that for this very unique cause, not just me, but also hundreds of youths across the country came forward to work in this project. And we also noticed a similar kind of excitement and appreciation among our guests during our local level policy dialogue, which indeed reflects a very positive trend in our society. But of course, we also had challenges. This project unearthed that many people from the remote areas of Bangladesh, especially the religious leaders, still think of such discussions as a taboo. While on one hand, this project gave us the opportunity to talk to them. Can you see my screen?
No, we don't.
Okay. So I stopped presenting the screen because I'm talking about my personal experience.
Yeah, I think so.
Working.
Sifat, yeah, you have. Let's finish in 1 minute. Thank you,
Yes, of
Sifat.
course. So as I was saying that this project gave us a forum to discuss such issues with the people from the most remote and grassroots level in our country. And this also gave us a future direction that why more of such projects need to come in the country in the future as well. And on the societal level, while most of the young boys are mostly taught to be dominant, forceful, or inexpressive of emotions, we now also see a positive trend of change in our society where more and more males are coming forward to discuss SRHR, to work as feminists, and to build healthier and safer environment for women in the society. And on that happy note, I would like to end my speech here. Thank you so much for having me here once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sifat Tasfia. Thank you, Bangladesh team. So now let's move to India team. Over to you. India. Who wants to start this context? Yes, you can start.
Hi, just 1 second.
Okay, sure. Siddhant, yeah. Siddhant, you start. Yeah. You
Yeah,
have,
just sorry.
yeah, try to finish in 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll back again. Yeah, thank you.
So when we talk about, just 1 second, I'm opening a document in the background. It had all my pointers. I'm so sorry. So, like, when we talk about early child marriage in India, it's quite common, also because of the patriarchal norms. As you know, once again, I think Niti will take over this part.
Okay, hello everyone. Niti here, please.
Okay, Niti, yeah, please.
Yes, Niti.
Please carry on.
I speak in Hindi
Yes, please.
and translate Siddhant.
I'll
Okay.
translate.
Yes, please, Niti. Over to you.
Okay. तो हमारे जो प्रोजेक्ट में पिछले एक साल से जो प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा था उसमें चाइल्ड एंड फोर्स मैरिज एंड जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस और SRHR कुछ इशूज लिए गए थे जो पांचों देशों में एक ऐसा इशू था जो चाइल्ड एंड फोर्स मैरिज था जो पांचों देशों में एक जैसा था। उस सबको लेके हम लोगों ने अपने फील्ड में काम किया है। उस काम के दौरान हम लोगों ने पिछले एक सालों में 3 चाइल्ड मैरिज को रुकवाया, फोर्स मैरिज को रुकवाया है और उसके अलावा SRHR को लेके हम लोगों ने लगातार एक यूथ टीम बनाकर उसमें हम लोगों ने चाइल्ड मैरिज को लेकर पॉक्सो एक्ट और चाइल्ड फोर्स मैरिज को लेकर जो इंडिया का लॉ है उसके लिए अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम चलाया है, ट्रेनिंग चलाया है, पॉम्पलेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन किया है और कई तरीके की ट्रेनिंग की है, पेरेंट्स के साथ काउंसलिंग करते आ रहे हैं। तो सिद्धांत इतना ट्रांसलेट करिए।
So, through the 1-year project that they have done, the organization has worked on the issues of child, post-marriage, and like reducing child marriage. Then they have worked on gender, and then they have worked on HR. And one thing that they have seen is like these issues are common all across the South Asian countries. Through their work, they have actually managed to shape the changes that are happening. And apart from that, they have also worked with the youth. And regarding child marriage, the law that India has, POCSO Act, they have worked on that to spread awareness on that. And also spread awareness on forced marriage by spreading pamphlets and working in the communities to like prevent forced marriage. Niti ma'am, आगे.
इसके साथ साथ हम लोगों ने सरकार के साथ मिलकर चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन ग्रुप भी 3 ग्रुप डेवलप किया है जिसके थ्रू हम लोग पेरेंट्स को काउंसलिंग करते हैं और जिस बच्चे को शादी करने का, जिस लड़की या गर्ल्स एंड बॉयज को शादी करने का मन नहीं है वो अपने कम्युनिटी में ही इस ग्रुप से बात कर सकता है और वो ग्रुप डायरेक्ट पुलिस से हेल्प लेकर चाइल्ड एंड फोर्स मैरिज को रोकने में मदद कर रहा है, जिसमें हमारा साथ पूरा प्रशासन मतलब इंडियन पुलिस दे रही है और कहीं ना कहीं चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन ऑफिसर हमारे फेवर में है और हम लोग एक बड़ा अचीवमेंट भी देख रहे हैं अपने फील्ड में।
So one of the things that the organization has managed to do is like they have managed to collaborate with the child protection officers along with working with parents. And the big advantage of working with child protection officers is that if they see a marriage is happening in which the child does not want to get married, the community can just report to the child protection officer. And because like the rapport between police and child protection officer and the organization is very good, they have been very successful in reducing the number of child marriages that are happening.
Niti?
हाँ हाँ इसके अगर इस बिहाफ पे हम लोग SRHR के काम को देखें तो लगातार जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेशन पे हम लोगों ने पिछले 1 सालों में यूथ के साथ 13 ट्रेनिंग्स की है और 42 स्कूल में हम लोगों ने ट्रेनिंग चलाई है, खासतौर से मेंस्ट्रुअल हाइजीन एंड रिप्रोडक्टिव राइट एंड हेल्थ पे। और इन सारे ट्रेनिंग्स का अचीवमेंट ये निकल के आया कि हम लोगों ने सरकार से सरकारी सुविधाओं का जो हमको लाभ मिलने वाला है वो लाभ मिल पा रहा है, हमारे यूथ में ब्लॉक एंड डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे अपनी बात कर पा रहे हैं। तो ये सारे अचीवमेंट हमारे ट्रेनिंग से उनको मिले हैं। लोगों ने जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेशन को लेके तीन तीन बनारस के 3 गांव में हम लोगों ने पुरुषों और लड़कों के साथ एक ग्रुप बनाया है, जिसके पिछले 1 सालों से लगातार हम लोग उनको जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेशन पे ट्रेनिंग दे रहे हैं कि किस तरीके से पितृसत्ता और मर्दानगी उनके नेचर में है या फिर हमारे इस सामाजिकता में है। तो इन सब चीजों को हम लोग उनको लगातार अवेयर कर रहे हैं। एक पोस्टर मटेरियल और पैम्पलेट इन सबको एग्जाम्पल में रखते हुए उनके रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी को किस तरीके से पितृसत्तात्मक या मर्दानगी के कॉन्टेस्ट में आता है। तो इतना हम लोगों ने लगातार ये सब कुछ ट्रेनिंग के माध्यम से उनको समझाने की कोशिश की है। और कहीं ना कहीं हम अपने ग्रुप में देखें तो ये बदलाव आ रहा है कि लोग समझ रहे हैं कि मर्दानगी से ही जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेशन पनपता है। चल
So what the organization has managed to do is like they have managed to work with like youth and like with female they participants, they have managed to give them information on menstrual health. And since the government is in their favor, they have managed to conduct a lot of trainings, and these trainings have been used to talk about gender-based violence and gender-based violence with context to masculinities. And through this dissemination of information, they have actually managed to like reduce gender-based violence and address the issue of masculinities at the same time. The rest of this we'll talk about in the next part.
Thank you, Niti. Thank you, Siddhant. We shall back to you again. So shall we move to Nepal team? Nepal team, who wants to present the context in Nepal in terms of SRHR and child marriage in Nepal? We want to hear Nepal's situation.
I'm
So,
going to
yeah,
present
please.
on behalf of Nepal for
Yes,
this
please.
session.
Welcome.
So I'm sharing my screen. So just wait for a while. So I think now it's visible. My screen is visible.
Yes, we can. We can see.
Yeah.
Please start.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Please start.
So
We
thank
are
you
excited.
so much.
We want to hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving this opportunity. And I'm representing ULI. And currently I'm now focusing on the child marriage perspective, and later on Subiksha will take on SRHR aspects on the second round. So before sharing the current perspective of Nepal, I want to share one small case study, so which will also give the overall picture of the current scenario of child marriage in Nepal. So Pavitra eloped and married at the age of 15 to escape extreme poverty at her parents' home. Pavitra now lives with her in-laws and cooks for all the members of the large family. Her husband lives in India and works as a cook. So it's a general glimpse of a scenario of child marriage in Nepal, which is very commonly in context of other South Asian countries as well. So there are, beside that, there are other reasons behind the child marriage in Nepal. Basically, the most driven factor is the gender inequality and the belief that women and girls are somehow inferior to men and the boys. So it's the main crux behind the child marriage that can be visible in Nepal. Besides that, there are the poverty. There are still practices of harmful traditional practices. So if you can see the status, so nowadays there are self-initiated marriage are increasing day by day. And also the caste system is also the reason behind the child marriage. Specifically, the child marriage is more practiced in the so-called lower caste and the marginalized community. Also the lack of education, and also the tendency of child marriage was increased during the time of natural disasters and pandemics. So Nepal faced, as we all know, that the earthquake that Nepal faced. So after that natural disaster, there are a significantly rise in the cases of child marriage. And also during this time of pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, we can also see the increased tendency of child marriage in Nepal as well. So there are also some of this data will also share the tendency of child marriage in prospects to Nepal. So Nepal, the minimum age of marriage in Nepal, according to Nepal law, is 20. So we are at the 70th highest prevalence rate in both child marriage and childbirth, according to UNICEF. So more than 1 in 10 Nepali boys is married before they reached 18. 26.3% of children from the age of 10 to 18 years are married. Of these, the marriage rate of children in the age group of 17 to 18 is estimated to be 75.66% of total child marriages. So women marry 4 years earlier than men, 17.9 years versus 21.7 years on average in Nepal. So this also shows the tendency of masculinity as well. Also, the child love marriage, as I said earlier, the child love marriages stands as 62% of the total child marriage. The arranged marriage is being gradually decreasing, but the child love marriages, self-initiated marriage is increasing nowadays. And in comparison to all 7 provinces of the Nepal, the child marriage, the rate of child marriage is a little bit high in province 2. So Nepal southern border with Bihar, and along the borders between the province 5 and 6, which is also the extended border into Uttar Pradesh of India. So where more than half of the girls are married before 18. Also, research on 2017 estimates that ending child marriage in Nepal could see a 12.7% rise in earning and productivity of Nepali women who married early. So there's a research happened, and also 196 issues of child marriage was reported, from which 196 children were affected. So these are the data from the State of the Children in Nepal, which was recently published by the National Child Rights Council. And also the data I get from the Child Helpline. So it shows that from Jan 2020 to 5th of October 2020, 196 cases were reported in the Child Helpline only. So we can see that there are a number of child marriage cases being reported through unofficial way. But if you go to the official procedure, what we can got this that below 100 within a year, only the below 100 cases was reported through the formal process. So there are lots of endeavors being happening in Nepal. So from the government, from the other civil society organizations. But what I want to highlight is that there are 2 strategies being implemented by the Nepal government. One is a strategy for ending child marriage by 2030. And we do have another strategy on men's engagement to eradicate violence against women and girls. So these 2 are major strategies which are focused for ending child marriage and ending violence against women. So taking on this strategy, the local governments, they are also developed different strategies to work in their local governments. And there are lots of local government where they are also practicing those strategies. But the main challenge that still we are facing is the tracking the policies and commitments from the local government or from the federal government or from the provincial government. So there are lots of strategies, there are lots of policies that are being endorsed, that are being developed, but it's very difficult and it's very hard that we can find the implementation status. So where we are now in terms of implementation of those strategies. So we are facing those kind of challenges. So at the end, I want to share this flyer as well. So it's the 16 days campaign. Along with Men Engage Alliance, Girls Not Bride, and ULI, we are working on this campaign as well. So I want to stop here now. Thank you, Salma.
Thank you, Santosh. Really nice. And we get a really context of Nepal around, especially on child marriage. So we want to move to Pakistan. So who wants to share experience of men's context in Pakistan? Who wants to come? Pakistan team?
Yes, Salma, I'll be presenting about the Pakistan situation.
Welcome.
Okay, so I hope everyone is able to hear me clearly. Yeah.
Yes.
So hello everyone. Greetings from Pakistan, and this is Sayyid Ali Salman, and I shall be talking about on the topic of child early and forced marriages in Pakistan. Children's early and forced marriages in an extremely serious concern in Pakistan. According to the Economic Survey of Pakistan in 2012 and 13, we can see that Pakistan is the sixth populous country in the world, having an established 18.34 million people with 2% growth rate. And with this growth rate, by 50, Pakistan will be the fifth populated country in the world with 8% of estimated children in its population. So with this huge amount of number of children in the population, we can see that child marriage is a very serious concern, because it's highly prevalent in Pakistan, particularly in rural and disadvantaged areas, that is adversely impacting the sexual, reproductive, and physical and psychological well-being of women in the almost 1/3 of the girls in Pakistan, they marry before they approach the 18 years of age, and reportedly, country has one of the highest number of child marriages in the world. Additionally, Pakistan is increasingly high. Huge proportion of young girls are forced to marry under the age of 18 due to myriads of socio-cultural reasons in the country. According to UK's forced marriage unit, Pakistan, with 439 cases, ranked the highest among top 4 focused in, countries in 2017, followed by Bangladesh, Somalia, and India. So a big number of these children, mainly girls, are married in their innocent age, even at the age of 7. In 2001, estimated 37% of women were reported to be 18 years of age, and the percentage is still feared to be the same even after the lapse of 12 years. Pakistan demographic mentions that in its section of the teenage fertility, that almost half of the girls of 15 to 18 years of age were already pregnant or had a baby care of. The exact number of child early marriages are not available due to lack of proper documentation in Pakistan. In 2017, cases of child marriages were reported by different media agencies, and 43% of among these cases were children from 11 to 15 years of age, and 32% were from 6 to 10 years of age. In 2008 and 9, approximately 24,000 children aged from 10 to 14 were reported to be married, and over 100,000 children from the age group of 15 to 19 were to get married. The number of children married in their minor ages is in but not monitored and reported in Pakistan. And it's very important to understand the issue of child early and forced marriage from men's point of view, because they have different socio-cultural factors, biological factors are different. So the impact of early and forced marriage on men is quite different. They do not have to take care of the pregnancies. They do not burden of rearing the children. So there's a difference between the impact of early marriage. Similar adult responsibilities for which they may not be prepared, and that brings them to an early fatherhood responsibility, and which may deprive them from their education or opportunities in their career advancements. It is significant to engage men and boys in the discussion for curbing the problem of CEFM for the following points. As a decision maker and potential husbands, men and boys are central to any effort to end child marriage. Father or senior male relatives play very important roles in negotiating and deciding on matches that are advantageous for the family. Then religious leaders play a dual role, directly officiating the marriages that may involve children, and more directly influencing the community opinion with their views and actions. And last, male community members reflect the peer context for individual and family decisions about marriage, schooling, healthcare, and other issues, These men can support or discourage marriage-related decisions taken by the others in the community. Male teachers, healthcare providers, and local government officials are often influential in communities, and their actions and opinions can have an important influence on the public opinion. So that's
Fine.
how we can.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So it's very good timing. We are a little bit behind of the timing. So thank you. We shall back again with you all. So now we would like to hear Sri Lanka team. Sri Lanka, who wants to present the context of Sri Lanka? Danel, or
Right.
yes, Danel. How? Hi. Yes,
Hello.
over to you.
Hi.
Hello,
Yeah.
Danel. Yes, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It was also really interesting to listen to everyone. I think our contexts are so very similar, but also a little bit different in our kind of nuances and complexities, but in general, quite similar in terms of the broader challenges we face as well. So for the next kind of 5 minutes, I'll give a small summary of some of the findings from Sri Lanka. These are also informed by this desk review that I worked on for the kind of the Men Engage Alliance in Sri Lanka as well. So in terms of, I don't have any slides, but I have two charts that I'd like to share with all of you. In terms of kind of child early and forced marriage, Sri Lanka is doing relatively better than some of the other countries. And this graph as well shows that. Now the dip in the graph is in 1995. That's when kind of 18 was imposed as the general age of marriage in the country. Now there is still some marriages taking place, and that's because of a specific community law called the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act that's still there in the country that kind of violates the rights of the Muslim girl child. But I'll talk about it more specifically in the next few minutes. In terms of also kind of pregnant mothers and pregnant women, that is also in decline. Of course, there is a lot more to do in terms of reaching all people, all men and women, because some groups are definitely left behind, even though there is general progress in the country. So those are kind of the two graphs to show that our trajectory is positive, but to show that, but what I want to highlight in the next few minutes is to show that even though there is general positive developments, a lot of people are, and a lot of communities are getting left behind from this idea of progress, particularly in terms of child marriage. So one of the major obstacles is the law itself. Now, in Sri Lanka, the age of consent for sex is 16, but the age of consent for marriage is 18 under the general marriage law. Now, here as well, there is a bit of a legal gap, but there is more complexity in that there is three different laws for marriage. One called the General Marriage Registrations Ordinance, which specifies the age as 18. Then there's a Canadian Marriage and Divorce Act, which is a regional law only for a very specific reason, which also says 18. But there is the Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, which actually has no no age of marriage that's specified. Now, this law has been identified by kind of Muslim women's rights groups for many years as needed to be changed, and kind of Muslim women have been calling for this law to be changed for many years, but it hasn't happened. And a lot of child rights groups and women's rights groups have been kind of vocal that this law needs to change. Even though there have also been calls to change this law, there is also general, there is also kind of sense of like Islamophobia in the country as well. So sometimes calls for these changes of laws get hijacked by people with agendas as well. So it's something that kind of rights groups and so on tend to tread carefully and work very carefully with. But it's something that women's groups have been asking for many years as well. Now, another thing that other groups have also said, other countries have also said, is that there is so much stigma around sex and sexuality and so on in our countries. And sometimes for young people, marriage is seen as the only acceptable way to explore their sexuality. So if you kind of need to engage in sex or explore your sexuality, then the only way to do it is by getting married. So a lot of young people then either what we call elope with their partners, which then lead to early marriages, or they get caught to their parents because they are constantly under parental supervision, engaging in some kind of sexual experience, and then they're forced into marriage by their parents because because the parents found out that they were kind of engaging in this act. Now, both of these are related to the fact that there is so much stigma around these issues in our countries as well. Now, second of all, so far I've also spoken so much within what we call a heteronormative framework, which is to think that kind of everyone in our region is heterosexual, which is also not true. There are also young people who are in our countries who are not. And a lot of these young people, particularly from the LGBT plus communities, are also forced into marriage by their families because of the situations they're in. There are also cases of there are laws in Sri Lanka still today that kind of criminalize same-sex behavior. So what this does is some people tend to kind of hide their sexuality, and sometimes even when they're open about their sexuality, parents and other family members and so on force them into marriage. That's again an issue. And there are also fake pseudo therapeutic practices that have come up, which are not medically accurate, but people have started an industry around it, suggesting that they can change people's sexuality and then allowing them to get married and so on as well. So there are industries around these things that have come up. Particularly because of COVID-19, a lot of people have been economically affected. And as we know, marriage can often also be, if not just an exchange of families and people, it's also an exchange of labor. So often with people losing jobs and losing money, especially for girls, marriage is now seen, especially by their parents and so on, as a way of dealing with this economic problem by giving girls in, by forcing girls into marriage. Another thing to think about it also, how the school closures and a lot of young people being at home these days is also impacting their studies, but also marriage. Because as I said in the beginning, a lot of young people, because they're at home, also engage in relationships and so on with other young people, and this could force them into a marriage because parents find out about these things and so on as well.
Thank you. Sona, yeah, have you done? Is it done?
Have I finished my time?
Yes, you have. It is,
okay.
It is done. Time is over.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. I'll stop it there.
Yeah, we were really enjoying and hope that in next round we will hear more. So we will back you again. So we want to thank you every country. It is I'm so excited hearing you all. So just to say a few words about before we go for next round, we have found some of the very common thing in terms of the situation context, policy context in all the South Asian countries, and some are and also in terms of challenges. Like I have heard that the poverty matters to child marriage. There are caste issues. Marginalized groups are more are basically they are having more percentage of child marriage, but also another thing we have experienced that SRHR itself and sexuality, expression of sexuality, it's itself a very stigma in all the South Asian countries. So that is why there is a huge implication on child marriage as well. There are age difference, means in various within South Asia, though we are very close, but also there are legal marriage age is also not the same. We have a little bit of difference of percentage of rate of child and forced marriage. It is a bit similar, but also difference we have experienced. In terms of challenges, we have seen that there are policies in various in all our countries, and also interesting findings also came from Nepal, I guess. They also mentioned that they have a man engaged strategy also. for addressing the issues of equality for women and girls as well. So that is interesting also to hear. But challenges, it also mentioned that though there is policy or strategy to address child marriage, but tracking is very important, and that is the challenge part we are experiencing. So we do not know what is the status, how it is improving or not improving, what is the situation. So that is why, but lot of studies, and especially from country and also UNICEF or Girls Not Brides, they are really collecting data on child marriage, which helps us. And all of our countries, they gone through the analysis of existing policies and strategies of the country to look at that where we are. And then we definitely in next round we'll hear that how we want to how we have packaged our program. It was also interesting, just my last point here of the first session, that is we also experienced that we have helpline in our countries. So are we using, how effectively we are using? So there are some mechanisms, there are policies, there are issues of multidimensional poverty aspects and also inequality aspects, which are common and which are also, but it is very much with gender inequality and very much with stigma. Still, SRHR itself is stigma in our countries. The reason why a lot of consequences happening. Also, you addresses about the coronavirus, how the situation critically made the whole situation even critical. So nice to hear everyone. We want to hear more about. So we want to move to the next round. Our second round is we want to start from Nepal team, and then we will come to Pakistan and Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and India. So the round is about, because the first round we discussed about our context, where our situation, and that is a good tone set happened. So now we want to hear about the project itself, the SRHR project, which we all together really developed together and now implementing and experiencing how it goes. So let's hear about the interventions we have done, different types of interventions. So a little bit we want to hear about the interventions, but we will not speak more about means lot of interventions. We know that a lot of activities is happening. So really be critical about very specific, maybe not more than 4 minutes. I want to little bit actually want to time now is a very huge concern. So that is why let's try everyone keep it in 4 minutes to share about the interventions, how briefly you can say. So let's start with Nepal team. Over to Nepal team. Who wants to come first? Nepal team. Shubhecha. No.
Right?
Shubhecha.
Yeah.
Is it Shubhecha? Okay.
Can I
Yes.
start?
Yes, please. Shubhecha, we are not hearing much. Can the speaker? We can hear you. That is true. Yeah. Yes, it is better
Yeah.
now.
Speak a bit
Yes.
louder.
It is not. It is better now.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
Shubhecha,
I'll
over
be
to you.
louder. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's a very huge task. Like in 4 minutes, I have to share all my interventions, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank Men Engage Alliance Nepal for nominating me as a change maker for this project, and definitely Men Engage Alliance as a whole for providing this platform to work with the community who strongly believes in the cause and also fulfill my own commitment towards this issue. The exciting journey started in Addis Ababa last year, where we got into the dynamics of creating new ways and events of working together as a region and sorting our long list of ideas. Everyone from our region agreed to focus on child marriage, and my colleague from Nepal has already shared a situational analysis of the issue in Nepal. I will focus more on the mobilization and capacity development of youth as change makers, because SRHR issue will also be shared by my colleague in the second round, where we discuss about the recommendation and challenges of child marriages. So, as the network organization associated with Men Engage Alliance Nepal, we've continuously organized events throughout the year with engaging youth through workshops, webinars, conference, etc. So this year, two major conferences took place in Nepal, and that was like one was Nepal's first feminist and men conference, and which was organized virtually, and the other conference was in February before the COVID strike, which was the Generation Equality National Youth Conference, which I was also a key coordinator. The conference was also very important in terms of 2020 being a very important year as we celebrated the 25 years of ICPD, 25 years of Beijing, SDG 5 years, and also 75 years of the UN. So it was a very important year, and we organized these conferences to landmark the commitment on gender equality, these significant landmarks, and also re-energize ourselves on how do we move further with this engaging main concept as well. So for Nepal, it was all the more important because 2019-20 was marked by government as a youth mobilization year in addressing violence and discrimination and promoting peace building. Now, these conferences, the main, it was obviously inclusivity was very much at the core of these conferences, but the most important part was half of the participants were male youth, because most of the gender equality conferences and gender issues, they're only female participants. So we made sure that 50% participants were youth from all over Nepal. And the conference also discussed on the toxic masculinity as the hindrance to gender equality and women's empowerment, and promoted the concept of positive masculinity. Now, the initial plan was to take this forward in all 7 provinces, but due to COVID, this was not possible. And we did also not want the momentum that had already set by the national conference to go slack. So what we did was we've started organizing youth webinar series on generational equality, which takes place once in every 2 weeks, and we have and this the speakers for these webinars are all youth, and we have 2 male and 2 female speakers, so we get the male perspective on all the issues that we discuss in this webinars. So now, besides the webinars, as we wanted to also expand the change makers, number of change makers. So what we did is we've selected 24 youth from the among the conference participants as change makers. And it's not only easy to just nominate the youth. We've also because they also need to have the conceptual clarity in many issues before they are actually a change maker. So we have a special training package for them, which is aimed at grooming inclusive youth committed to gender equality and social change. So the selected youth are represented from all different groups, and the course focuses on the issue of sexual reproductive health rights, SRHR, and doing away with harmful traditional practices. So men engagement approach is discussed in every class in all topics. Now, so for social media campaign also, during the 16 days, we have highlighted mostly the social media campaign. So we have identified youth icons who are very famous, including male icons. We have a huge fan following in social media. So they send a short video expressing their pledge against GBV. The video message of the youth icons are then being disseminated through social media, which will influence the youth audience to speak up and take up action against the violence. Now, in terms of mobilizing policymakers, we invariably coordinate with government agencies in all our interventions, and the process of implementation pass on the knowledge of best practices. The launch of campaign and Say No to Male Only panel, Our Goal Stop Violence Against Women with Footballers, have set positive examples in engaging men and boys approach. So to conclude, we have started to look our every effort aimed at gender equality and violence prevention from the perspective of engaging men and boys. So our commitment and action in this regard will make a huge difference, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Salma.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really feeling so sorry that we are not really getting enough time to hear a lot. We want to really, but very nicely you really speak. So quickly move to other country, that is Pakistan. So Pakistan, over to you.
Thank you, Salma. This is Inamul Haq from Pakistan, and I'm going to present the SRHR activities and my learning from this project. Men Engage Alliance Pakistan has been working on GBV issues and their redressal since 2007, and all of the members have been engaged in various activity on GBV, including child, early, and forced marriage in over 16 districts of Pakistan. The SRHR Changemaker project by Men Engage Alliance Global has been able to further Pakistanize agenda on CEFM. So in fact, this has been an opportunity to further enhance our community mobilization, research and advocacy agenda as per our strategic plan. To begin with a desk review of the situation in Pakistan, we undertaken so that all of our action could be informed by evidence on the ground. The desk review undertook a gap analysis of all existing legislation at national and provincial level and identify area of the effective intervention. Eco-copied with this knowledge, the project began community mobilization and advocacy activities. Over 15 parliamentarians were lobbied with who promised to support and suggested change in legislation. The Ministry of Human Rights, National Commission of Status of Women, and the Chair of Women Parliamentary Caucus and the national level were engaged with. All the stakeholders met with agreed to initiate some level of action on supporting legislation efforts for the prevention of child marriages. Under the project, community mobilization activities have been undertaken in Jhelum, Islamabad, and Rawalpindi, complemented by other members' activity in other districts. Community meetings have been with different stakeholders of communities such as faith-based leaders, community focal person, youth, women, and for the addressing of child marriage issue in Pakistan. The party spent over 4,000 report having better knowledge on legislative and contextual situation in Pakistan on child early and forced marriage, and realized that the negative impact it has on the lives of both girls and boys, and limiting their access to the basic and fundamental rights such as education, safety from any kind of harm, having a better standard of life, and making their own choices. As mentioned by other speakers, it is a negative impact on emotional, psychological, and physical growth and well-being of children. Number of the stakeholders are taking action against child early and forced marriage in their family, community, and convincing the parents to prevent child marriages. Unfortunately, face-to-face activities had to be halted, and we strategized around the changing all our activities to distance mode. Social media such as Facebook was used to present pretending messages. Poster and flyers were distributed, and WhatsApp group were formed to disseminate the messages. A number of youth volunteers also took responsibility of taking to the individual, family, and peer sharing of knowledge. A few faith leaders addressed the issue in their sermons. The project activity were supplemented through the funds available to the Men Engaged Pakistan. Advocacy was undertaken through a media partner, Hum TV, and 4 TV program on early marriage were presented to viewer in Pakistan. The speaker included Ministry of State parliamentarians, including the chair of South Asian Women Parliamentary Group and CSO activists. The program attract over 1 million viewership and 28,000 engagement in social media. 6 webinar organized on GBV and child.
Just if you can conclude, in few seconds. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Of 500 people attended the webinar, and 25,000 people from global. The creative expression such as art exhibition, artist work, painting, sculpture, design was organized at the national and level, widely covered by the print media. Struggle continuing in Pakistan. COVID situation has reportedly increased in the incidence of child marriage. Both family can avoid spending food for 100 people from both sides. There are strict Lankan legislation, particularly on the age of marriage, which has been used in political and religious issues. All of us must work together to end the grave of violation of child rights.
Thank you, Shubhitra. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope that we will learn more about. If you can also write something in the chat box, it will be also learning for all of us. So we want to move to Sri Lanka now. for 4 minutes. I know it is difficult. It is really hard, but let's try.
I can share my
Sri
screen.
Lanka. Yes, over to you,
Mm,
Adil.
can you see my screen?
It is coming. Yes, it is. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So basically, I need to brief my work in Sri Lanka. Our project title is Stop Early and Forced Marriages in Sri Lanka. We have change makers around 30, but we have lots of youth volunteers working with us. And we have very diverse group and LGBTIQ community, including LGBTIQ community, different ethnic groups and marginalized groups. So when we're talking about the mobilization and capacity development of youth, we have very strong youth change maker network. So in very diverse group, and we are working with partner organizations. We have few partner organizations. They are also working with youth groups in Sri Lanka. So we are conducting online capacity building sessions, physical workshop and youth camps, counseling sessions, counseling youth camps. We are working to increase the youth engagement in Sri Lanka because we need to engage with them, because we need to work our project title, then we need to work with youth engagement. So when I'm talking about our social media campaign, we started a Facebook page like this. I think you can see my screen, Stop Early and Forced Marriages Sri Lanka. We did a Facebook campaign, poster campaign and video campaign, engaging with our youth change makers. So you can also go to our Facebook page and see our campaigns. We did the campaign in two local languages, English, Sinhala and Tamil. We engaged with youth change makers and get their thoughts about early and forced marriage. They talk about lesbian community, LGBTIQ community, and Muslim marriage and divorce acts. So they are also very aware about this topic. Mobilizing policymakers and politicians, positive influences. So we have identified few politicians who prone the early and forced marriages. We have identified, and for an example, some parliamentarians are try to raise private bills to parliament. So we are trying to engage with them and have a discussion with them. Discussions also happening about the MMDA issues. Men Engage Alliance has been joined with the activists and group. In Sri Lanka, we have so many activists talking about these issues like early and forced marriages, LGBTIQ issues, Muslim Marriage and Divorce Act, SRHR issues, kind of. So Men Engage Alliance has joined with the other organizations such as Family Planning Association Sri Lanka, Equity Sri Lanka, International Youth Alliance for Family Planning, for their campaigns on the issues. International Youth Alliance for Family Planning is a new organization implemented by Sri Lanka. They are also doing some
Adil,
campaigns,
you
and
have,
also we are also
can you please finish in 30 seconds?
yes.
Yep.
We are also working with them. So media engagement and article writing on the issues. I'm also writing some articles for print media, digital media, and social media. Our change makers also doing some article campaigns on this topic. When we are talking about group practices in engaging men and boys, the dialogue, we have change makers who are working different types of field. They are also addressing men and masculinity in their work, and also we are working with feminist movement in Sri Lanka. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Adil. Thank you. Yeah, really, very precisely you mentioned. So, really great to hear. Now we want to back to again Bangladesh and then India. So, Bangladesh, over to you.
Thank you, Salma Appa, for this opportunity. So my colleague Sifat will present my presentation, and already our all intervention mentioned by my colleagues from our South Asian countries. So I will not too lengthy, but I just share some intervention in Bangladesh. So our planning, our intervention, all are same for South Asia. But in Bangladesh, we developed a innovative model to implement this SRHR for all project, and we focus on the youth mobilization and movement building. So in our project implementation, we recruit, appoint two change maker, country national change maker, with focus on the gender identities and inclusion. So by these three change maker, we recruit 15 master facilitator for delivering online based training for capacity building. And COVID-19 creates new challenges to implementing projects, or the intervention, SRHR related intervention. So we provide training for master facilitator first, with 15 master facilitator, including trans community, including indigenous people, disability community, and from all over Bangladesh, young people. So after that, we provide basic knowledge on men and masculinity, gender-based violence, SRHR related information, and we provide training through 15 master facilitator among 150 young change maker or young volunteer all over Bangladesh. So we are focusing 32 million young people of all gender identities, and all volunteer receive project orientation and also training on gender equality, feminism, power dynamics, and it's called TOT. So next slide, please. And also we conducted 100 local level advocacy dialogue after that training, engaging 500 students, 200 fathers, 200 teachers, 15 elected representative, and 40 government official, 40 journalists, 40 religious leader, and 20 qazis. So transformation is starting, and localization, true localization, we implement in our have developed also for social media, and it will be start on the 6th December by a launching social media campaign. And we also preparing advocacy dialogue with media, parliamentary and high level government official, and building cross connection, cross movement building with feminist group, with girls advocacy alliance, and also SRHR related knowledge hub. It's called ShareNet. And recently we joined a national level dialogue with the government and United Nation, and there we advocate for more main engagement to health service.
1 minute.
So we are on that transformation and the cross movement building issues. Thank you, Salma.
Wow, you have done. You have done even early, so thank you. This is really saves some time. So let's quickly move to India team. India team, please.
Yeah, hi. So I will be talking about the interventions that we have been implementing till now. And
sure, please.
Yeah.
4 minutes. Yeah.
So to start with, the way we implement in the field is through a curriculum which focuses on comprehensive sexuality education, and the curriculum focuses on pleasure and equality. And when we talk about pleasure and equality in relationships, we also talk about sex, we talk about consent, we talk about pleasure. And but like it's not in isolation. I hope my voice is clear. Yeah. So so it's not in isolation per se, But like, so when we talk about relationships, so we talk about what the participants think is a healthy relationship and what participants think is an unhealthy relationship, and the same applies with consent and pleasure, what they might like and what they might not like. So with this, like when we had gone to the field to implement, the biggest issue that we saw was like there was no engagement with men, and the law says the same. So for example, when we talk about medical termination of pregnancy act, the act does not talk about men at all, and even with women it forces towards giving abortion to married women more easily than unmarried women. So, and when we go to doctors, what we had observed was like that men were asked to stay out of the rooms. Doctors were not taught how to talk with men. So, or even with contraceptives, the same applied, where they knew what to do, what the contraceptives did, but they did not know how they did it. And the myth was that men do not find this conversation interesting. They do not want to be a part of it. So, what we did was we kind of provided a space for men to talk about these issues and provide them with information. And the first thing that we observed was that men were interested in talking about these issues. So when we talk about, in one of the sessions, a lot of participants asked, "How do I know if my partner is enjoying sex?" And what about female pleasure? So conversations like these were happening, and what we did was we provided them with a safe space to talk about these issues. And like when we are providing these informations, they, since like it's a rights based approach, we also kind of consider the realities of the men and in mind. So like what they might know, like their caste, class, and how this might have an impact on it. And so through two of our programs, like while talking about female pleasure, we were implementing this program in Uttar Pradesh, and during one of our sessions, hello, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So uh, in Uttar Pradesh, we kind of realized that in one of the sessions, like while we were talking about these issues, some participants realized that they shouldn't have gotten married so easily and they should have waited. And all we are doing is we are providing them with information for them to make informed choice and like know about their body and their partner's body, while also knowing like what healthy is, what unhealthy is, what violence is, how there's not just physical violence. And when we are talking about this, I think we should also consider the broader issue at mind, because like currently there's a phase of hypernationalism in the country where there are talks about how the Indian demography is changing and how men are being asked to reproduce to maintain the previous demography. And while we provide this information, it provides men a space to like think about their life decisions and also correct the previous misinformation. So for example, some men thought that after they experience nightfall, their fertility reduces, which is why they wanted to get married early so that they can have more children. Uh, and like again, as the Sri Lankan team was saying that marriage provides an incentive for a sexual relationship. So kind of breaking the taboo away from sex has also kind of ensured that the participants can delay in their marriage. And this is what we have done, that we have informed the participants about their bodies, about their partners, about the relationships they want, with context to their relationships and their identity and discrimination. And this has given them enough like agency to decide what they want to do. And since a lot of taboos are being broken away, a lot of participants have either started arguing against child marriage, early child marriage, and have started delaying their marriage, or have found, uh, yeah, and so they have found like ways to delay their marriage. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Siddhant. Since Salma had to drop a little bit due to bad connection, let me invite Sri Lanka team. I think we had the India team last, right? And yeah, so that actually concludes our second round, where we discussed about the interventions, particularly our South Asia common project on stop early and forced marriages, where we kind of had the same objective, and where we kind of talked about similar intervention tools that we could take. And so I think we all our change makers who are here today had nicely described how they have got into the interventions and their experiences of doing it, and how far they have kind of being able to make a change in their own societies and within the youth groups that they have been working with. So Salma, are you there? Okay, since until Salma joins, I think for the sake of the time, I would like to turn into the third round, where we will kind of discuss more on like combining our first and the second round, and also kind of going into more way forward kind of a discussion, where we will ask the countries, the speakers, the young change makers from each country. To share their experiences in terms of, particularly in terms of lessons learned, and also recommendations based on all the barriers that they have been facing. And I think with this round, we are trying to understand what common barriers are there in South Asia, and in terms of not only in terms of the issue on early and forced marriages as a problem, but also in terms of engaging young boys into this whole discussion, engaging young boys to change the practices, to kind of go into a new generation of thinking, where young people will change the momentum and will change the whole social context which this issue is being kind of practiced. So let's hear from our change makers and see what they have to say in terms of moving forward, in terms of challenging the mental barriers, challenging the social cultural barriers. What is the role of young change makers? What can we do in terms of changing the practice and pushing towards policy changes in our own countries and for whole of South Asia? So let me invite maybe Nepal again to start the conversation, and then we'll move forward.
Sure, Salma, I will take the lead from Nepal.
Yes, thank you.
So again, I'm going to share my screen. So I think it's visible now.
Yes, it is. So note that you again will have 4 minutes. So we'll
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So before going to the recommendation and learnings, in lining with that, I want to share some endeavors that we are currently undertaking in the field for in terms of this early marriage, the forced marriage, child marriage related works. So what we are currently being focused is that most of our works are that are very related with the engaging young people in forefront, or the role models, or they are the champions. And specifically, we are focusing on the men. So again, those men, those young people, they are the formal child club members. So after crossing the age limit of 18, they cannot be the member of child clubs, but they can be the role model of those community, those areas. So they can work for ending child marriage, creating awareness against the child marriage and forced marriage in their community. So we found that it is very fruitful, and it's very working. It works. It really works in the community. And also, as ULA also being an organization established by the former child club members and the youth and youth-led organization, we are developing allies with different like-minded organizations in the local level and also in the provincial and federal level, so that we can create a group of like-minded organizations. We can work together on the common issue to fight on that issue. And I said earlier, so we are also mobilizing the formal child club members, means they are previously at the age up to age of 18. They were at the child club. They had gained different skills. They had get different trainings. They do have the different advocacy related works, and also those child club members, they do those advocacy works in the in their community. So as being the former child club member and the youth-led organization, we have networks among the 77 all across the 77 districts, and that means all across the Nepal, so that we can mobilize those former child club members, those youths, for our issue, for working on the ending child marriage and the forced marriage in that community. And what one activity that we found is very working in the field is that the carrying out intergenerational dialogues. So those dialogues represents the participation from the local leaders of that community, the religious leaders, the children, the adolescents, the youths. They themselves comes together and they interact on the issues of child marriage. So as there is the presence of the local leaders, those influencing power holders, let's say the men, basically of that community. So they get engaged on this topic and they get try to challenge their masculinity, try to challenge their manhood, so that later on after the intergenerational dialogue, it will be very. We found it very useful, fruitful for changing their mindset of the masculinity of their of the power in that community. And also
Santosh,
we are working
you
closely.
have 30 seconds.
So I'm going fast then. Okay,
Any
so
recommendation? Any
yeah,
recommendation?
sure.
Yeah,
So I
please,
definitely
please
skip
share
this.
some
So
recommendations.
learnings and recommendations. So we found that recommendation and learning is the engaging young people and champions. Those young champions as very crucial, as they are the they are the pillars of that community. So it will be very fruitful for working with young people and the champions, and also working jointly with the government and specifically with the local governments. It counts well. So as they are the main acting governing body of that committee, so we should work on the local government. And also linking child marriage issue with other different issues such as SRHR, education, the leadership development, the personality development, so that it will be interconnected and it will be easier for us to gain what we want to gain. And also what another thing is very crucial and the recommendation is that partnership with children and young people in the movement is very crucial and it's very fruitful, so that we can change the mindset of the people, of the mindset of the children from the very low age, so that they can work accordingly in the future days as well. So thank you, Salma. I finished my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Santosh. Thank you so much. So we have heard about the Nepal team. So now shall we go for Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka.
Sure. Yes.
Yes.
I'll make this. I'll try and make this as quick as possible.
Yes.
I think
Try
based
to
on.
finish it in 3.5 minutes. 30 seconds safe.
Okay, and maybe if I cross 3.5 minutes, just tell me, and then I'll
Okay.
stop here.
Yes. Thank you. Over to you.
Sure. Yeah. So I think based on what the other speakers said as well, our experience also has been quite similar, that we need to do things to change attitudes that people have related to gender, particularly about gender roles, about what it means to be a man or a boy, and what it means to be a husband or a father to a young woman and so on. Because as everyone else also said, kind of male sexual conduct is often kind of celebrated, but when it comes to women, it's almost seen as a burden, and then they need and it needs to be fixed by kind of using the solution that's marriage. So in order to change attitudes, one thing that we think is kind of using art and technology and new tools like that to generate conversations about these issues, which we think is very important as well, especially art and approaches like that. And again, also engaging particularly men and boys and discussing about the ways that these gender roles kind of limit our own opportunities and relationships and so on. So that at home, at school, and on the road and so on, the men as well the boys can kind of lead on challenging these assumptions and behaviors. We also think it's important to sensitize like key stakeholders.
We are not seeing the presentation. Is the presentation still there?
No, I don't
Okay.
have a presentation.
Yeah, carry on.
So kind of sensitizing particular groups and stakeholders like healthcare providers and teachers and so on. Another thing is also generating a discussion about child rights within the school system as well, particularly within the school system in platforms like the parent-teacher associations, parents meetings and teachers meetings and so on, using these spaces to generate a conversation about child rights, which links to child marriage as well. Another thing is to support and amplify voices of feminist groups, which are calling for these issues, calling for changes in these issues. And the final one is basically to create awareness and like our friends from India said, comprehensive sexuality education, which is not only medicalized, but like they said, discusses not just the biology and puberty and all of these, the more medical side of things, but also about rights, about pleasure, about bodies and consent, and about technology and the digital life and all of these things as well. So those were kind of the recommendations that we had.
Thank you, Senal. Really good. So we want to hear, now want to hear the India team. India, please.
Yeah, hi. So we have two opinions.
Yes,
so,
Siddhant.
Requesting Niti ma'am if she wants to say something.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Niti? We want to hear you, Niti. Yes. Niti, you can start.
Until then, I can talk about my points. So we had
sure.
we had 3 points. So specifically, when it comes to engaging with men, the 3 barriers that we face are first, we think there's a lot of information overload, especially for men because they have access to technology. So what it does is there are multiple sources of information, and there's no idea about like which information is correct and which information is wrong. And especially like with the rise of forward culture, what we have seen is that a lot of misogynistic jokes are also being sent. So even that kind of normalizes the information that is being sent, which is like all over the place. And second is that keeping the pandemic in the current context, I think there's a need for the masculinities programming to go beyond just looking at masculinities as an isolated project. And so which is why like even the research that we are doing, what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand the impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown, not only on gender perception of men, but also what impact it had on their livelihood, on their education, on public health, and what sanitation, hygiene, to consider that. And also to to have an intersectional perspective when we talk about masculinities, because every time we talk about masculinity, it's assumed that there's one kind of man, but depending on caste, class, the region of living, it also has an impact on the kind of masculinities that would be there. So to understand that, Niti ma'am, is there something you want to say?
चाइल्ड एंड फोर्स अर्ली मैरिज को अगर प्रॉब्लम हम लोग देखें तो उसमें शादी इतनी जरूरी चीज है जिसकी वजह से उन लोग लड़की को पढ़ाना कम समझते हैं और शादी जल्दी करना है इसलिए वो बोझ समझ के जल्दी कर देते हैं। डावरी एक बड़ा हमारे लिए एक प्रॉब्लम है जिसकी वजह से वो अपना जितनी जल्दी शादी करेंगे उतना जल्दी उनको उतना कम डावरी देना पड़ेगा। दूसरी बात, पितृसत्ता जो है, पैट्रियार्की जो है, वो सबसे बड़ा इस हमारे इंडिया कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है क्योंकि वहां पे पुरुषों की सत्ता चलती है, लड़कियों और औरतों की सत्ता बात नहीं मानी जाती है। इसलिए अर्ली एंड फोर्स्ड मैरिज का प्रॉब्लम हमारे लिए बना है। वैसे ही दूसरी बात, कोविड के दौरान कम पैसे में शादी हो जाए या शिक्षा बंद हो गई इसलिए जल्दी से शादी कर दी जाए, ये सब भी हमारे लिए बैरियर्स हैं। और अभी अगर हम आगे देखें तो कम उम्र में जो बच्चे शादी कर ले रहे हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं एज लॉ गलत है, बट राइट टू चॉइस की बात करें तो वो कहीं ना कहीं सही है।
Niti ma'am is pointing towards 3 problems. The first problem she's saying is like early marriage has a lot of impact on the education, which means that women are supposed to give up on their education for marriage. This is followed with dowry that where like a lot of money is spent by the daughter's wife on the daughter's family on which is given, and like this all is combined with patriarchy. On top of which we have COVID-19, where like marriages are possible at lesser prices, which has also increased the amount of marriage that is happening. And yeah, and it's about empowering the women and men to give them the choice. But yeah, I would also like to emphasize like that we have to like when we have this discussion, especially at this point, it's very important to keep the context of COVID in mind because it has changed a lot. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Siddhant. Thank you, Niti. Now we want to go to Pakistan, please. Pakistan. Pakistan. Yes, waiting.
Okay, can you people hear me?
Yes, Syed. Yes, we want to hear your lessons and also recommendations.
So, keeping in view the time limitation, I'll straight learning and these learning as includes the challenges as well. Basically, we believe that underlying main cause behind CEFM is the patriarchal mindset, which takes women and children, especially the girls, as commodity that can be sold, exchanged, or given in settlement of disputes between families, tribes, or clans. Like any other patriarchal society, Pakistan being a patriarchal society creates a mindset of individuals who are ready to accept the men as superior ones in almost all aspects of life. And that puts women and any other gender at a lower level and gives the control to most of the men in the society, and then they are in position to decide about the future of especially women and girls of the younger ages as well. Now, that hegemonic mindset is not only obvious in particular events, that can be seen in various traditions and customs in the culture. Like, for example, there is Vani, Swara, Petlikhi, Sangchati, Badal, Bazu, Vatasata, marriage with Quran. There are lots of different shapes of this patriarchal mindset which can be seen in the culture. And we see that many of the women are a survivor of this violence, where they are forced or they are married in a very young age to another person or sometimes to some non-living things in the culture. Poverty can be another reason for the CFM. Mostly poor households living in rural areas having large family size with meager income and resources tend to shift some of the economic burden to the other family by marrying their young children, especially girls. That is one very strong reason of having early or forced marriage in the culture. Another learning and challenge we have been facing is that concept of honor is attached with women. So if something happens to the virginity of women in younger age or without marriage, that brings defamation to the family. And to avoid that kind of defamation, parents usually try to marry the girl in younger ages or sometimes in the forced marriage. We can see weak legal.
Shall we hear just a quick recommendations from Pakistan?
Yes, I'm just moving to that. Give me 1 minute for that.
We have 1 minute, but we have 1 minute.
Yes, I'll be completing that in that time. Okay, so weak legal framework and the poor implementation of the law, it's another area. We have not been able to define a particular age for women for their marriage. There can be different laws, and different in different laws, women are they're assigned different age groups to get married. So that's another area which needs to be focused. Regarding the recommendations, we definitely need to engage men and boys with gendered education, education with a gendered lens for them, so they can understand the problems and the gender pressures women face in a patriarchal society. Aside from the family values, social values are widely embraced in the whole community, so which made it natural or very acceptable for child marriage or early marriage or forced marriage, where parents are believed to be the decision making force for their children. So that's another area which needs to be focused. Researchers suggest that in case child marriages, when consent, women feel lonely in their families, so they accept getting married at an early age, and that provides a reason for parents as well to marry them in the younger ages. There is a dire need of research for exploring the depth of issue in Pakistan, and data availability on child marriage is stronger for females than males, because towards males it is not seen as a violence. Men being the powerful, thought to be powerful in the society, they basically not seen as a victim of violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you so much. Okay, now, last but not the least, Bangladesh team. Yeah, lessons and our and also the recommendations. So, who wants to share?
Yes. Thank you, Salmappa, again. And to implementing our intervention, so we learned how we can use digital platform to movement building and capacity development in the pandemic time. It's our great learn. And another is that we should not only focus on the girls to prevent child marriage, we should focus potential groom and also matchmaker. We should address them. And it's our learning from this project intervention. And the challenge is the same. In our country, its colonial law has, and many laws and policies are we have, but the implementation rate, and also not only policies, laws, implementation is very low. And my colleague Shubeksa mentioned about generation equality or Beijing platform 25, and I was in the ICPD 25 commitment. So government build commitment, but it's time to hold accountable them to fulfilling their commitment. And COVID creates new crisis for to ending child marriage. It's new epidemic in line of the COVID-19. So government recovery plan should include ending child marriage prevention, and research service are essential, like responding COVID-19. So it's my recommendation for country level. So I have a recommendation for region. So dialogue in this roundtable, we South Asian young people are telling that our girls, our children are not protected from forced marriage, and it's increasing. So our leaders.
Not hearing Shohan. Shohan, we are not hearing you. We are not seeing you also, I guess. I'm not seeing Shohan. So, a little bit waiting because still a few seconds time. So, if he back. Okay, Shohan is typing. What is typing? So maybe Shohan is disconnected. So yeah, because of digital digital platform. He is trying to write something, maybe to communicate to all of you. Okay, his connection lost. So, but we got to. Oh, Shohan, you back? Yes, Shohan, you back? We can hear. Just your recommendation, final, in few seconds. Yeah, please.
Yes, yes. So my last, we want to lead. We want to lead our South Asia with our main engaged regional team to battling end marriage, end child and forced marriage.
Thank you, Bangladesh team also. So we want to really thank all our panelists, youth panelists, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Hope that we have here all of you. So we want to hear a little bit before we sum up. I think that let's take some questions from the audience, the participants. Yeah, so now it is who wants to speak? Please unmute and speak. Your question. We want to hear some questions. So, any question?
We have a hand raised, Salma from Sanjo.
Sanju, okay. Yeah, over to you.
Hi, Salma, Sanjay from Nepal. Thank you for an opportunity. Thank you. It is very fruitful discussion, and it's quite a very informative to know that what's happening in terms of men engaged, especially focusing on ending the forced and child marriage. So my question, not specifically to the somebody, but it could be answered by any of the panelists from the South Asia, that we have more than the decade-long history of having a men-gaze alliance in our region, and we have our own issues and more innovation of tackling the various gender-related issues. So why we are still not that, our men-gaze movement is that not that much vibrant that it's supposed to be? Why, where we are lacking? We have young people, lots of youth are coming off the gender has been the mainstreaming, and we are claiming that we made as a political issue, but still where we're lacking. So I just wanted to hear from our friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjan. Really good question. So any other question? We want to take few questions first. Anyone? Maybe if I'm not missing anyone's hand. Shall I? I want to, we really want to hear more questions. So please. Otherwise, how do we understand that you really listen carefully or not? You really enjoyed or not? Any learning?
So
any
Salma,
comments
until we get more questions, shall we? Let me see whether I
saw just a few seconds to
we saw. Yeah, Pooja wants to ask a question.
Yes. Okay. I have.
Hi, you're able to hear me?
Pooja. Yes, Pooja.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
so,
we can.
So I'm an Indian based in Hong Kong, and I've done a recent study on ethnic minority girls in Hong Kong facing situations of forced marriage. And so I just want to share with all of our advocates out here that it's, really incredibly important, the kind of work that you're doing and the strategies that you're using to engage with men in these communities, because these are the communities that we have in Hong Kong, the Bangladeshi, the Pakistani, the Indian, the Nepali communities. We have Sri Lankan communities as well, but I don't know here if they're experiencing these problems. But I'm very cautious in how I go about advocating against forced marriage here, because it becomes a very politicized issue, which also raises the prospect of enhancing Islamophobia. And so, so the first thing is it's very important the work you do, but the question I have is, how can we draw on some of the networks and the youth engagement that you're already doing? Because obviously, rather than have someone like me to advocate on behalf of Muslim and other communities in Hong Kong, it would be far more powerful to have Muslim youth to do such advocacy and engagement. But it's also very difficult for them because they don't want to be stigmatized in the community, and they also don't want to be identified as belonging to those groups and classes, because that generates a discourse of backwardness and attracts too much unwanted attention in an affluent society like Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, I'm happy that we had at least few questions. So just before I hand over to Shamita, want to conclude from my end. Um, just the last session, we had opportunity to learn from the lessons and also the recommendations. So I feel that everyone more or less wanted to say that, like SRHR for all and in-child marriage program, it needs to really continue. This has it started a huge programming, huge engagement, especially with the youths, and also youths are leading for the policy advocacy.
Salma, we don't hear you.
But I have
I am hearing. I am hearing.
Okay. Shamita,
I'm also hearing.
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, you can? Okay. Yes. So also we have heard that some of the lessons are really critical, that yes, around child marriage, SRHR, and around girl child. Actually, there is a huge mindset, a culture, honor issues, which are very patriarchal, very traditional, hegemonic kind of mindset. And these kinds of programming can influence a change in a very positive manner. And that is basically, you guys are mentioned really, that we need to definitely continue our working on engaging men and boys from a more gender equality lens, caring masculinities lens, but also we need to make sure that intersectionalities are equally important. And when we are doing it, currently you guys are really programming with all kinds of stakeholders, including even the faith groups also. So we need to more look at the power with approach, more engaging with the feminists, and also make sure that how much impact is happening. One of the questions came is so nice. I think we should be really make ourselves accountable for this. That is, Man Engaged Alliance is working for decades, and now if we look at that, how much impact we did, we really make us accountable and make sure that whatever we are doing, we are measuring the impact. We need to make sure that we are achieving a change and we are documenting that change. That is important. And also other final words I want to say, that it is about, since it is a digital platform now, that gives a huge opportunity for us also. Like for Bangladesh, it came that the whole programming is happening from a digital platform. No, we are not really meeting each other, but working is happening even from grassroots, means local level advocacy is happening through digital platform. So that is why it is important. And policy implementation, you all mentioned that policy is there, a lot of policies is there, we have achieved, and along with the feminist organizations and NGOs and other civil society organizations, Man Engaged Alliance also very much part of it. But policy implementation is very low. Government is making so many commitments in ICPD 25 or Beijing Plus 25, but what about the implementation? So to accelerate the implementation, policy implementation and government commitments, we need to make them accountable. So I feel that the new learning from this program is really very interesting. One is that now more of youths are engaged with this process, which is really very powerful. And our youth, I think that Man Engaged Alliance, though we are working for decades, but youths engaging is even relatively new to me. So if I'm not wrong, others please add value. So I want to feel that let's use this strategy, that youth should be really take the leadership on caring masculinities, how we can really promote in terms of end child marriage, SRHR for all, in inclusion lens, because it is for men, for women, for trans people or LGBTQ communities. It is a very inclusive lens. We want to use it. So let's keep continuing this kinds of work now in future. So now I would like to thank every panelist, all our youth. I just getting not time to really name everyone, but I'm really grateful. It's huge learning. I would look to now. I want to hand over to Shamita. Thank you, Shamita. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Salma. I think it had been a great discussion and great conversation among young people. I'm quite sure that that the focus and the discussions, the conversation that is brought by the young speakers is quite different from if we had brought people of our generation maybe. So that is why we particularly wanted to bring in the young people and to kind of to focus on the two questions that we had earlier, just to Sanjoy to mention why we didn't see much of momentum coming from young people with the Men Engage Alliance. There had been few drawbacks that I can definitely share here. With the last symposium which happened in Delhi, a huge momentum was built, and there were around more than 500, 600, 700 young people who joined in the conversation at the last symposium. But the momentum couldn't move forward due to several reasons. One thing is that although there was much sensitivity, much commitment, but lack of knowledge on what men and masculinities really meant. So we actually had to take a lot of time, built it very slow. Like we didn't want to make any harm in the moving forward aspect when we engage not only young people but also organization as members. So we particularly took a very slow process in building the movement, building the network, and also took more time on developing the capacities and building knowledge. So being that one reason, and also we all know that when it comes to South Asia, a few years back we were hardly hit by the Me Too movement, and that actually took a lot of our efforts in backwards many years. So that we in certain cases we had to start all over again, and it was a good kind of good hit anyway, that it should have happened at some point so that people can reflect upon and see whether we are taking the right track and whether we are engaging the right people, or whether we are kind of taking the right conversation. So it had been a kind of a good hit, which we again stopped and start reflecting. So then we also had the evaluations of Men Engage Alliance, where so many gaps have been identified in terms of engaging young people, bringing commitments of regions, how we can kind of put the commitments together to make a total difference in particular regions. So all these have been, now we have taken them into considerations, and we have particularly made it very clear that this symposium will be a total reflective kind of a process, where Men Engage Alliance will look at all these gaps, and definitely in the coming years, in the action plans that we might have in the future, we will definitely have in the future, will address all these issues. So even this change maker process that we took 2 years back, and it had been a very slow process, but now you can see how these young people have actually gone into the issue, and they have dig into the data, dig into the kind of determinants of the problem, and now they are able to give us kind of the results that they have achieved, the good practices they have done, and they are also giving us recommendations out of their learning. So I think that itself kind of says something to us, that engaging young people can definitely make a difference. So we will take this step forward in a very effective manner in the coming years. So I just wanted to kind of add those points from my point of view as the regional coordinator for the Men Engage Alliance in South Asia. And also, Pooja, I think a very relevant question that you asked. I think especially sometimes people just carry their whole baggage of culture wherever they move, no matter whether they are in a very kind of very modern society, but they will definitely take their baggage of their own traditions and culture, and also the patriarchal mindset. So we heard from the young speakers that this patriarchal mindset is, I mean, if you take it anywhere, it can have a kind of a negative effect for the people who are around you. So basically, it's quite good that if we can kind of have this kind of discussion in a kind of a multiple communities like Hong Kong, where it's a kind of a mixed society. So I'm just offering this opportunity again to one of the speakers who would want to speak more on the question that Pooja asked, especially with regard to how to mobilize young Muslim boys. So if anyone from either Pakistan, Bangladesh can contribute to that question, or even anyone from other countries also willing to, I mean, when it comes to Islamophobia, we know that it's there in Sri Lanka, and it can definitely affect all our discussions and all our effort. Maybe Senel, if you want to join in. So I'm just opening up to the speakers to give their inputs for 1 or 2 minutes.
Thanks, Amita. I actually, I didn't think we will have time, so I sent in a private message telling Pooja some of what I can now say. But I mean, what I told Pooja as well is that we have the same challenges as you said as well in Sri Lanka, where there is a very real issue of this law that is of discriminating the kind of the Muslim girl child. But at the same time, there is also a very real threat of kind of Islamophobia and racism. And it's something that's a bit kind of always a tricky one to negotiate that. But I think, as Pooja highlighted as well, I think the best solution is to amplify Muslim women's voices so that then it doesn't become an issue between two groups, but something that those communities themselves are demanding. And I guess Pooja's issue now is that a lot of some of the groups are struggling to come forward, which in Sri Lanka is of course is not such a big issue because the Muslim women's movement is organized a bit more because of their kind of years of struggle related to the conflict and all of these things. These groups are already organized and making these demands. But of course, some of them are also having different issues. But I think maybe amplifying those voices, and even if they're not able to kind of show their face and name, but if anonymously, some produce videos and put them out and so on, I think maybe those can be some other strategies as well.
Yeah, thank you, Senil. And I think in terms of a few young Muslim boys who are part of our Changemaker system, we know that they are making changes at their own ends individually, with their own peer groups, with their own families. We did have a Changemaker who actually made a difference at his own family, where when his own young sister was to give in marriage at very young age, and he was able to intervene and stop that. So it sometimes it has to come from the family. So I think, to sum up everything, I think the young speakers had said it all, so I don't need to kind of repeat again. But in terms of, I think, making a change, we need to kind of address the mental barriers in our individual platforms, individual level, the community levels, and also at the institutional level, and also in general in our whole societies. And we also kind of try to emphasize the importance of addressing different forms of masculinities, which actually affect this decision to get the children in marriage, or force them to get marriage. So I think the laws and the policies are very important, but how are we to put those into practice? Because sometimes the traditions are more stronger than the policies, so we have to fight both. So I think to sum up and to kind of wrap up, I would like to thank everyone, the speakers, our moderator Salma. Thank you so much. It was an amazing job. We know that most of us had the connection issues, because I think South Asia is having some weather issues in common to all the countries. In Sri Lanka, we had been experiencing rain, and we are expecting kind of thunderstorms in the evening. So I think our audience will excuse that situation which is coming from South Asia, and we are very thankful for the audience that had been listening to us. And we were live streaming on our South Asia Facebook page. So you can share the discussion with your own, Facebook groups and platforms to make this conversation or take this conversation forward. So thank you everyone very much, and let's keep the work going, and let's have a better discussion in the coming years. So thank you all very much.
Everyone, you can really unmute and open your video so that during the closing we can see all of you. Yeah, see yourself, show yourself. We can want to see everyone. Thank you. That is the
that is the young spirit. So let me take.
Yes, everyone, lovely.
Yes, thank you so much. And with I think with the power of love, let's conclude the session, and let's meet again and have a very strong conversation, and let's keep the work going in our own communities. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
And especially, I think we need to thank Tom, who had been there in the background. And I think it's very late for him there in Australia, but supporting us in the communications and helping us to put this on live. So
we would also like to thank the organizing team from Sri Lanka. Thank you so much. It's really hard work to organize the whole event. Hope everyone enjoyed and learned. Thank you, Shamita. Thank you, all panelists. Goodbye.
Thank
See you again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.